Okay.
Yes.
And ready, set, go.
Cool. So my name's Matt. Hello. So just to give you, a quick introduction. Oh, where's it going? I think I'll just do it manually. That's okay. Can you guys see that? Cool. So just a quick intro. So, quick show of hands, how many of you are sysadmins in here? Yes. That's so nice. So starting 7 to 8 years ago, I started off as desktop administration, gravitated to junior sysadmin, eventually started working as a network administrator, and eventually I started working at a company called Bella Internet as a network engineer. And I got a call from a recruiter, like many of you here, and they asked me if I want to move out to Texas. I'm like, no, why would anyone ever want to move out to Texas? Like, hey, it's for this company called Cisco. I was like, it's my dream job. I would love to work for Cisco coming from a network engineering principal. So I moved out to Texas in 3 days, and after about a couple years there, I ended up deciding to come back to California because I missed it. Yeah, and true that. And I ended up taking a position at Fox. So Fox, just to give you guys some clarity, we're a shared service for a bunch of different websites. Fox.com, FXNetworks.com, SimpsonsWorld.com, a variety of digital properties on the website side. And just a quick introduction, I did that already, and quick role about what we actually do. So we're completely responsible for all the infrastructure hosting for a majority of these websites. In addition to this hosting, we do code deployments for a variety of different applications. Again, predominantly web applications, so it's a variety of different stacks. Node.js, LAMP stacks, a variety of them. And how many of you know what CDN is here? Verizon, Akamai, perfect. So we manage a CDN relationship as well with Akamai. And a huge thing for my team, and my team's actually here with me, is we have a big responsibility for a culture of sharing. And I tell the guys all the time, it's just not maintaining and keeping the websites up. We also have to innovate as well. So when I started at Fox, I want to talk about where we actually started. So how many of you are quote-unquote in the cloud? Good. So for us, we were quote-unquote in the cloud as well, but for us, that just meant we had servers provisioned somewhere in the cloud, but we treated it like traditional infrastructure. So that was where we actually started. Second thing is, who's responsible for code deployments here? Quite a few. A lot of the times, the people who are actually doing the code deployments themselves aren't the ones that are actually writing it. So how do you actually support something? It's that whole notion of throwing something over the wall and operations supporting it. In addition to that, if you look at Fox.com, FXNetworks.com, they're individual business units. So we have different processes for each of the deployment applications. And the second thing is, there's so much change occurring in the environment, it's very difficult to keep track of. We had to be agile, so we had the development teams have full access to the system, but that was, again, creating a lot of change and variance within our infrastructure. And two, we had no orchestration framework, and there's a lack of documentation. So going back a slide, that's so much to accomplish, so many different issues. Where do we start? So for me, I didn't look at KPIs, I didn't look at costs, I just looked at my team. And the one thing I really wanted for my team was work-life balance. And once you start to look at it in that light, everything kind of falls into place. You end up looking at where it hurts the most for our team. Why are we staying up late at night? Why are we getting called at 3, 4 in the morning on an issue? Restarting systems. So I wanted to produce a better quality of life for the team, so we use that as the biggest metric. So there's a bunch of different companies here. Quick show of hands, who comes from a small, medium, or large enterprise? Yes, everyone. As you know, in enterprise, it's quite hard to induce change. Right? Change has to happen really incrementally. So how do we take those principles of all these startups in Santa Monica, in Silicon Valley, and institutionalize them within the large enterprise? And secondly, if you look at software development, it's a craft. How do we make operations a craft as well? So I was in London last week, and I was playing tennis. And if you look at any sport, so who plays a sport here? It could be tennis, golf, basketball. You start noticing a bunch of common things between a sport and what we actually do on a day-to-day basis. If you want to get better at any of these sports, you have to do deliberate practice. On a day-to-day basis, you're building rigor into yourself. 2, you're creating good habits. And 3, when the tennis ball comes, you're naturally just stroking and you're hitting the ball. You're not reacting. It just becomes secondhand. So how do we bring that same principle into our craft? Again, I don't want to get called at 2, 3 in the morning and rehearse something for the very first time. And quick show of hands, I know a lot of you have been to Velocity or Scale. How many heard of Chaos Monkey from Netflix? It's crazy. It's quite intelligent what they're doing. They're inducing change and failure systematically. But that's really far away from us. So where do we start? How do we take incremental approaches towards that? Because that doesn't happen overnight. I'm sure it didn't take them 2 weeks or 3 weeks. It took them quite an amount of time. How are we doing on time?
We're about 5 minutes.
Great. So these are just some key concepts, and I'm going to deep dive a little bit more into each one. So what I really wanted for our team here at Fox was operational excellency. So we do that through a variety of different things. We have to automate. We have to stay lean. We have to limit change. Again, developers making constant changes, so we had to strip away some of the changes, at least initially. And then we had to start manufacturing control changes from the team. And again, I'm going to touch a little bit more on the culture of sharing and capturing that knowledge. So for those of you who are actually responsible for doing code deployment, how often is it that it works in dev and QA, maybe staging, but not production? And we have to end up troubleshooting. That happens all the time. So one of the first things we started doing at Fox was we looked at every system inside the ecosystem, and we started to rebuild it. But we didn't do it traditionally like what we usually do with documentation and starting up a server, IPing it, giving the right subnet, run these steps that requires human intervention. So we have to start looking at different tool sets. And for us, we started looking at Ansible. Since it just made sense, we were still SSHing into servers, and that's where we started. 2, configuration management and infrastructure as code. So for me, this really serves 2 purposes. 1, we're going to manufacture change in a controlled fashion. And 2, documentation is really hard, right? I think it's usually a byproduct, right? We think about it after. So we build systems, and we got to go back, and we actually have to start documenting. But how about we do it from the inception? Right? We start by documenting our infrastructure, but use that to implement it as well. So we're not treating it as 2 separate processes. 3, going back to the first slide, we're talking about a bunch of different processes for getting just a simple application, fox.com, fxnetworks.com out there. How do we simplify that process? Why are we running shell scripts? So we started to build a very, very simple code deployment pipeline. Cool. And the 4th thing is, yeah, that's great. Netflix is doing an awesome job at killing random processes, killing PIDs. That's way too far for us right now. So what we could do by putting automation in place, treating our infrastructure as code, started enforcing a weekly rotation of our systems. And what does that do? It goes back to the first principle, right? It becomes muscle memory. It's not when issues occur. It's going to happen inevitably. So when they actually do occur, we're doing it for the 10th, 20th, 30th, 40th time. It becomes muscle memory. And then I trust my team in the middle of the night to make those changes. So this is just a quick snapshot of snippet of our code, right? So we started treating our infrastructure as code. No more days of logging in and running RPM, yum, whatever it is. We wanted a human-readable format to describe our infrastructure. And a big thing I see, especially with sysadmins, a lot of us like working in our little cave, and it's really hard to do peer review. So how do we institutionalize peer review within our teams? So we did a very simple code review process. Right? When we first started this, we were just making changes, pushing codes out, running playbooks. So our code review process is quite simple. We have a GitHub, Bitbucket repository. We create a branch. We push to that remote branch. We create a pull request, and someone else on that team has to approve those changes. So I hold 2 people accountable for making a change in the system. And then once they review it, they accept it, and they merge that request. So it's a quite simple review process. I have a quick clip to show. But it wasn't just beautiful the whole way. We ran into a ton of different issues, right? We talk about success, but what about our failures? A big thing for us was these are new skills that we had to develop, right? Back then when we first started into this craft 10, 15 years ago, these tools didn't exist. So these are new skills that we had to develop. We had to bring Ansible in, professional services in, and wanted to build a mix of in-house expertise with professional services. So it's not so black and white, everything's a balance. Someone talked about in their last slide, cycle times. trying to increase cycle time. For us, everything was really slow in the beginning. People were asking for simple requests. I had to push back. I had to say, sorry, we can't do it immediately. We need to utilize our system for this. Check in the code, review it, and push. And that's difficult, right, from a cultural perspective. And the last thing is resistance to change. And I think...
And you are out of time. All right, can I get a round of applause?
Cool. Thanks.
And we'll do the video later.
Yeah, we can do it live.
Yeah.
Cool.
As we're getting ready to break. Okay, Corey.